So I have to say I am really impressed that so many people turned out this evening to listen about this subject. So I offer my kudos to you for being inquisitive and finding out more and being involved in our future. I also want to offer kudos to Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal for her work to protect us average New Yorkers from the serious potential health threats of radon exposure in our kitchens. As has been mentioned, with radon being the #1 cause of lung cancer in non-smokers, and asking the right questions and highlighting this before we get sick is of key importance. Now this should be happening with all of our elected officials. We shouldn't just be having one here with us. We should see movement around this. I mean, based on what we've heard this evening, based on the evidence, based on the data that we're seeing before us, this is a serious threat. And we do need to get our elected officials in the Assembly and in the Senate on these bills. This is simply establishing a monitoring system for the amount of radon that's coming in through these pipelines. This is just simply protecting our health. And to that extent, I want to highlight that in the bill, the language is actually for picocuries, or picocuries, it's pronounced both ways. But the World Health Organization is saying actually the reasonable level is 2. So it's a real no-brainer to get this passed. And it's really imperative that we do get this passed. So I really want to encourage people to collect information that's out on those tables, which has more information about radon, in which you can make phone calls and you can go and make visits, in-district visits, with your elected officials, with your senators, with your assembly folks, and tell them that there is reason to be concerned about them, and give them an education, as we have received this evening. So not only are we calling on our legislators to pass these bills, but we are also calling on Governor Cuomo to complete and conduct an independent health impact assessment of shale gas extraction in accordance with the rigorous rules defined by the National Academy of Sciences. Which goes back to the precautionary principle. We're not saying we don't want you to make money. We just want to make sure that we're not going to die because of the money that's being made. Seems reasonable. In addition, we want this independent health impact assessment to include the risks, a full comprehensive assessment of the risks posed by radon, while additionally establishing the monitoring system for radon exposure and cancer trends. These are the kinds of things that protect the people. This is the job of what government should do. If the governor says that he is concerned with the science and the well-being of the people of New York, he must complete an comprehensive, independent health impact assessment as defined by the National Academy of Sciences, and will include radon. This is critical and imperative, and it is very important that we make sure that the governor follow through with this and that we put pressure on him to do this. So that is another action step. Call the governor. Ask him to do that. Then I want to just highlight that we have a petition. Do we have petitions flying around? Oh yes, okay, so there's a petition. Sign the petition. That's a real easy one. I also want to highlight, is Gail Brewer here, City Council? So I want to highlight that she is working on passing a resolution in the City Council around radon. So stay tuned for that. And then I strongly encourage you that, signing a petition is great, and making a phone call is also very good, but to continue to take action is critical. So please volunteer with one of the organizations or get involved with one of the organizations that's tabling out in the hallway this evening. They're all great organizations that I work with quite frequently, and do invaluable work for our betterment. I want to leave you with kind of this idea that if we don't stay involved and if we are not really engaged in this, people make decisions, and these decisions are made for us. It'd be the equivalent of walking into a restaurant being like, food. Well, sir, what kind of food do you want? Except the whole thing is unless you actually engage with your elected officials, they don't know what you want. And most of the time, they're just trying to get through with their own they have a lot of things coming across their plate. And if you don't make sure that you are one of those voices coming into their world, they're going to serve you whatever you get. And I don't like my chicken laced with radon or arsenic or benzene or any of these things. And our actions can prevent that from happening. Let me leave you with this. The Department of Health, which is saying that right now they don't, based on other shale plays, there's no reason to be concerned about radon. This Department of Health is the same Department of Health that a few years back, when there was this problem with children getting sick at this place called Love Canal, wouldn't do a study of these health impacts. So the people of the community started documenting what these health impacts were. And they found that about 60% of the kids were getting sick. So the people of this community took that information to the Department of Health. They presented it to the Department of Health, and the Department of Health said, wow, those are some findings. It is certainly striking that such a large combination or such a large percentage of this community has been born with genetic defects. And these were people that were exposed to just extreme amounts of toxic chemicals. And that is what this Department of Health had to say about this unreasonable crisis. So they turned it up louder, and they made sure that their voices were heard. And eventually they were moved out of those homes and relocated as they should have been. But that is what the Department of Health should have done in the first place. And this is the same Department of Health now that we have telling us, well, there's probably not any cause for concern. So it's up to us to raise our voices and say, wait a minute, we are not your lab rats in a radon gas experiment. And we will not be your guinea pigs, and we insist that you not only measure this and safeguard us, but we also insist on the precautionary principle, and that you study this and the health impacts rigorously before it happens. And that's it for me.
Actually, I encourage you to get emotional. I think the prospect of right on with your coffee is one I can certainly get very emotional about.